Hi, this is Ted Nguyen with Ted Nguyen USA doing a special Google Hangout with a special guest on the East Coast. I'm here in Orange County, California, talking with Matt Long with the internationally renowned travel blog called LandLopers. Now, Matt, did I say that right?
It's close enough. I usually say LandLopers, but it's open to interpretation.
Okay, so I'm going to start calling it LandLopers. Okay. So,
Okay.
so in just in the brief moment that we have today, Happy Independence Day, by the way.
Thank you too.
In the short moment that we have, I just wanted to find out from you, how you began your journey of travel blogging. Tell me a little bit more about Landlopers.
Sure. Well, about 4.5 years ago, on a long 3-day weekend, for some reason, I just started to start a website. And I'm not even sure at the time I understood fully what a blog was, but I had a passion for travel, and I worked in a job that didn't have a lot of creative outlets, and I'm a creative person, and so I needed that. So I decided to boot up and start a website and start sharing my love of travel with other people, and very luckily, it grew fairly quickly.
Yeah, I understand that that as far as Americans throughout in this economic time, it's been very, very difficult for a lot of us to be able to be successful in what we do, especially if we don't particularly enjoy it. So what is your advice as far as your journey and how you made that important step, and what are some of the things that you plan in order to fulfill your dream?
Well, one thing that I learned later than I perhaps wish I had was that you really have to love what you're doing, no matter what it is, in order to be really successful at it. I was in a job that paid the bills, that gave me health insurance, that gave me stability, but I was not at all happy. And it's amazing how that affects other parts of your life. It affects everything from your health to the personal decisions you make. And it wasn't until I started down I guess the travel road that I understood this. Learning about international cultures has always been a passion of mine ever since I was a little kid. And as an early adult, I forgot about that. So it was rediscovering that passion that has led to where I am right now.
Yeah. And so, what advice would you have, for people to make that big leap of faith, as well as, plan for a step of, not necessarily of, opening up a travel agency, but doing something that they love?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was definitely a process, and it was starting with a good foundation and really developing the website and trying to make it as good as I could possibly make it. And it was always my intention to one day go full time with it, as they say. But it wasn't until I was forced to do so that I found ways to make it a small business, to make my brand how I make my living. And that's definitely what I do today.
Right. So, tell us about your travel ventures. How did it get started, and then, what are some of the mechanics of that?
You mean just of the travel itself,
Yeah, the
or?
travel itself, how does it, come about? Is it organic, or is it planned throughout the year, or, how do you choose the destinations that you take throughout the year? And then how do you have time on top of the entrepreneurial work that you're doing?
It's a good question. Well, it's a mixture of things. So my partner and I have always loved to travel, and we've always made that an important part of our year and our budget, and we still do. So we'll take probably 2 or 3 trips a year, one longer one and a couple shorter ones, and that's just really based on whatever our interests are. So we were in Australia earlier this year. We were in London last month. And then in December, we're going on a European river cruise to see the Christmas markets. And that's just our own personal likes. And then for the more professional side of travel, I suppose, I do work with destinations and companies, on media trips and other sponsored trips to help highlight their destinations, but they have to be ones that I'm interested in. They have to be ones that I'm really passionate about exploring and seeing. And I definitely am judicious about which of those opportunities I decide to follow up on. It has to resonate with me, and it has to resonate with what I feel my readers will be interested in.
Right. So it's really authentic. It's not like, a
Oh,
company
yeah.
or a travel. tourism board and say, hey, Matt, we would love to have you come to X place. And if you're not interested, you're not going to go because that's
No.
something that your readers would not enjoy, you writing about something that you're not going to enjoy.
That's absolutely right. The internet has unique ability to detect BS faster than almost any other thing in the world. And then if anyone tries to be inauthentic, if they try to pull one over, they will not succeed. And I think that's the people who are in the digital world and succeed are the most authentic and true to their own voice.
Right, and I love your writing style. It is true to your voice as far as describing the destination, whether it's Cambodia or a particular unique place in Europe. There's that unique voice and perspective that you bring. There's so many different people that are travel bloggers out there. What do you think it is about your writing as well as your experience and your work that has distinguished you from the pack?
Well, it's to answer that is half guessing. I started 4.5 years ago, so that was not, it was in the mid-level of people starting out these sites, and so that's definitely advantageous. But from the very beginning and through today, I write for what I believe is an average person. I didn't sell my house. I didn't leave my significant other and put on a backpack and go see the world. And even today, now that travel is really my full-time job, my trips are never longer than 2 weeks. They're manageable trips for 99.9% of the people out there who can't be gone a month or two at a time. And I think that, along with just the way I see the world, for whatever reason, has resonated with people. People like the way I travel and want to travel the same way.
Right, absolutely. And as the internet and especially social media and the travel blogs have rapidly changed the media landscape, it used to be that people would read, guidebooks as well as, the actual destination themselves. Now they're relying on experts like yourself. How has that helped you as far as connecting with the readers throughout the world and really bridging the information and experience gap?
Well, it's amazing. You're right. For an industry, and we are an industry that is only about 5 or 6 years old. It's amazing how strong it is. In the United States, 30% of all travelers read a travel blog before making a booking decision. That's huge. In something that's only existed for a short amount of time. What the wonderful part of the site and then social media is being able to do that, to make those connections with people in all parts of the world and learning from them and how they travel, and which in turn does shape how I travel. I've gained some great tips and great insights from people that I would never have expected to.
Right. So tell us a little bit about your most recent destination and kind of describe what it's like to be a travel blogger on the road or in the air or wherever you may be in the river.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I just got back from Croatia. I was there for a week. It was my second trip there. It's one of my favorite destinations. It's a beautiful country with great food, great people. And the second time, the second trip there was really to try to get a little bit deeper. The first trip is always, just a broad brushstroke, and then the second time is really learning a little bit more about it. And then right before that trip, I was actually in Southeast Asia. I was working on a project with Cathay Pacific and flew out to Hong Kong and Cambodia. And those were both my first times in both those countries. So that's, for me, always really exciting to be in a new place and to start learning about it and understanding a little bit about how it ticks. As far as being a travel blogger, there is no recipe. If there were, then everyone would do it the same way. It's really finding something that works well for you. So for me, it is a mixture of being here at home and getting work done, and of course also being on the road. You can't write about travel without actually traveling. So I'd say throughout the year, about 20–25% of my time overall is spent traveling on boats, planes, trains, wherever. Then the rest of the time is here at home, and I do them in blocks. So like I said before, 2 weeks is a very long trip for me. I much prefer a 7 to 10 day trip. Because it's easier, and I like being at home. I do like coming home and being with my dogs and in my house in my own bed. So it's definitely a balancing act.
Right. So, what are some advice that you have for people, as they're researching travel blogs and preparing for trips? What are some of the key essential elements to making their trip more enjoyable and less stressful?
Sure. Well, one thing if you're using travel blogs to research your trip, definitely try to get on social media, get on Twitter and Facebook, and find three or four that match your travel style well. There's a writer out there for everyone, from solo female travelers to the very high-end travelers, and then start following them, read them, and once you discover that they are very similar to your own taste, follow their advice. There are generally very good tips offered on these sites, and as long as they reflect who you are, then the advice is usually pretty sound.
Mhm. All right. So, what is your favorite, tools that you utilize, while capturing those special memories on your travels?
Sure. Well, a few different things. My iPhone is my life,
Uh-huh.
as I think it is for most people nowadays. And I was just remarking a couple days ago, the quality of photos on the phone is
Uh-huh.
shockingly high now. And my partner, in fact, has given up using a separate camera on travels. Now just uses the phone.
Uh-huh.
So for me, that I use that for photos. Not all of them, because I do have my big camera as well. But if you don't want to bring a giant, DSLR into a market in the middle of Laos or into a restaurant, an iPhone really does a good job in a pinch. And I use it for note taking too. When I'm on a walking tour, I have to tell the tour guide in advance, I'm not ignoring you, I'm taking notes on my phone, so don't think me rude. And I think a lot of travelers are the same way. And of course, I do treasure my photos I take with my big digital camera. It's become a very important part of the experience, personally and professionally. And it's amazing just the quality of amateur photographers out there, of which I am one. I'm not a professional photographer by any
You
stretch.
take amazing photos, though. There are
Oh,
amazing photos in your blog.
I appreciate that. It's just something that's a lot of fun to do.
Uh-huh. So, I was going to ask you as far as the the types of travel, for the future. What is the future of travel, and especially with the online shared media that's happening right now, and what do you envision that you'll be adapting to next?
Sure. Well, as far as travel goes, it's ever evolving. On the luxury side, which I do a lot, it's all about the experiences. Experiential travel is the new luxury. I think we have a common interest in the Four Seasons Lanai, and they
Oh my
were
gosh,
one
that's amazing.
amazing. We've been three times. I love it. I can't wait to go back. But they were one of the first kind of capture that, and they introduced a volunteerism aspect to their stay. Which you don't have to do, but if you want to, you can. And you can volunteer in the local community, which is very small. Only 3,000 people live on Lanai, but it's a good way to feel like you're part of the community, and that's the new luxury. And you see hotels and properties around the world doing this, which 20 years ago would have been unthinkable. But the new luxury traveler really does want to get out there and have lunch for $2 at the market before going back to their five-star hotel. It's a dichotomy, but it is how they're traveling right now. And then I read this morning a report that leisure travel in general is picking back up, which is great. And so hopefully we'll see airfares continue to fall. They're a little high right now, but continue to fall and allow people to get out there and see more of the world.
Uh,
As far as how the digital world is impacting travel, it is impacting how we research and the things we do. But I don't think overall it's that different from what existed 20 years ago. I mean, I tell people that, Rick Steves is probably the first mega influencer out there. He didn't have to write guidebooks. People didn't have to read them. Arthur Fromer had written about Paris 40 years earlier, but they resonated with his voice and his style of travel. And that's all we're doing in the digital sphere right now. That's all I'm doing. People don't need me for 5 tips in Berlin. That's been done. But they identify with what I decide to do and see in Berlin, and that's the difference.
Right. Well, what a difference it's made, upon my travels as well, and just reading your blog and having a better insight into all that a destination has to offer. So I'm looking forward to potentially exploring Croatia. I've been to Cambodia already, so Croatia is perhaps on my next visit list after a
Good.
trip to Africa and doing a safari. as well. So I'm so excited, and we're so lucky, aren't we, to live in America, where we have the freedom of travel and the freedom of expression, two really important ingredients to making a successful travel blogger. So anything else that you want to share, Matt?
No, just have a great 4th of July, and thank you so much.
All right. So where can people find you in the digital space to learn more about your amazing travel destinations and your experience in sharing that with the world?
Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook, and then of course my site, which is landlopers.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm talking to Matt Long in the Washington, D.C. area, the owner and entrepreneur with LandLopers or LandLopers.com. So thank you.
Thank you
Happy
so much.
4th.